Frank McCourt was inspired to write by his early childhood, and this is a biography on him by McCourt was born in America, but his father could not get a job in the Depression era, so they moved back to Ireland.
Even though we were poor, at the lowest level, below the lowest economic level, we were always excited. It was rich in the sense that we had a lot to look up to look forward to, a lot to aspire to, a lot to dream about. But in economic circumstance, it was desperate. It was Calcutta with rain. At least they're warm in Calcutta. But it was desperate because of certain things, ingredients like my father being an alcoholic, my mother having too many babies in too short a time, no work available in Ireland, and even then when my father did get a job, he drank the wages. Then there was the harsh kind of schooling we had, with schoolmasters who ruled with the stick, and then the overwhelming presence of the church, which imbued us with fear all the time. So it was fear, dampness, poverty, alcoholism, fear of the church, fear of the schoolmasters, fear in general.
Frank McCourt was a very intellectual man, and this was a huge importance to him as shown by one of his most famous quotes.
If they told me to write an essay of 150 words, I'd write 500 words.
But what a lot of people don't know is that he followed that statement on how he would get harassed by the other students because of it.
I think the first book that I ever read was Tom Brown's School Days, which my mother bought from me at Woolworths in Limerick for sixpence, one of those cheap pulp books, and I treasure that. And then occasionally other books come into our area, but we couldn't just go out and buy books, and there was no library for children. There was a Carnegie Library for adults, but we didn't have books. So when Huckleberry Finn came in, Tom Sawyer. I wanted to be Tom Sawyer. I wanted to go down to the River Shannon, stand at the banks of the river, and dreamed it might be the Mississippi, and I'd get a raft, and off I'd go, 60 miles out to sea, and I wanted to be free like Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn.
He yearned to move to America and accomplished it when he was 19.
When he arrived there at 19, he was treated like dirt. His times in America were not good until he was drafted into the army during the Korean War. In his own words, I was liberated by the Chinese who attacked Korea, and America drafted me and sent me to Germany for 2 years. I don't know what I would have done if the Chinese hadn't attacked Korea. He trained dogs for a small time, and later he was able to use his GI Bill to get an education and be able to work and teach. He was a teacher at a vocational school first, and then at New York City College.
One morning, I was taking the train from Brooklyn into Manhattan, where I got the ferry to go up to Staten Island. And I was getting off the train at Whitehall Street, stepping off the train and onto the platform, and this thought came into my head: you could decide today to be happy. You could just make a decision instead of going in fear and trembling into the classroom. Now, it's easy to say that, and it doesn't always work, but I realized that I was resisting some kind of gloom gravity, that most of us, most of the time, we look on the dark side. But you have to work at lifting yourself up. And I tried it that day, and it was the beginning of that kind of practice.
He was a teacher also at Steubenville High, Seward Park High School, Washington, Irving High School of Fashion Industries, and they were all in New York. Later, he was inspired to write his first book by some of his students. His popularity surprised him, and he continued to write about his childhood. His first book was Angela's Ashes.
Frank McCourt has wrote a few books. Most of the books that he has written deal with his life. The first book he wrote covered his early life, the hardships of it, and his family. It is entitled Angela's Ashes, as his mother's name was Angela. The book Tis that he wrote dealt with his American journey from a poor immigrant into a brilliant teacher. He was surprised when his book sold, when he was able to live happily for many years aside from his marriage life, in which he divorced 2 wives. In 2009, he passed away from melanoma symptoms and left his third wife a widow. A movie by the same name of his first book was also